welcome back to the podcast. Dr. Alexa De Agostino is here, and she helps companies scale revenue. She's a fractional CMO and CRO. Her website is Think with a Y, fuelmedia.com. And she's the doctor of marketing. She's a heart-centered, successful entrepreneur and fractional chief marketing officer. She's built over 15 multi-million-dollar companies. She's had multiple successful exits totaling over 9 figures by age 30. She's scaled over 400 client businesses to millions, generated over $6 billion in sales, raised over $100 million for charities worldwide. Impressive stats, impressive numbers. We'll talk about it. We'll get some insights, some secrets. So, Dr. Alexa, very impressed already. Glad to be speaking with you.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's always so weird to hear people read your stats, because what they don't hear in all of that is all the failures and the hardships, and everybody thinks it's so easy to get there, but it's not, right? But thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you and your audience.
Excited to have you. And that's a really good life lesson, right? That like 5% or 10% of what you do are the successes that everyone else sees. And there's never enough time in the day. We need to be focused and hitting those goals and pushing ourselves, slightly past the limit, building up the muscle, doing all these things. And also kind of being optimistic, because a lot of it will fail, but you just need a handful of your different projects, ventures to work. So with all these massive successes and humble brags, why not just retire? Why not just sit on the beach if you have all the money you could ever want?
I did so for a little bit. And I realized really quickly that I was bored. So now I've kind of shifted my focus from, building startups, focusing on revenue, building my wealth, to now helping others do that. And so Thynkfuel is a venture marketing capital company that really focuses on building startups. And everything we do, I have to be passionate about. It has to be something I'm an expert in. We're very, very nitpicky on who we work with. And a lot of it is really impact driven type ventures. So that's kind of the shift. And trust me, I don't work 40 hours a week anymore as I used to. I pretty much work like Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings for the most part. That's like my main gig. But yeah, I mean, right now my focus is really creating impact.
And what does that mean? Like you talk about like these like impact centered businesses. Can you give us some examples of that?
Yeah. So one of the companies that I own equity in is a company called Tickets for Good. And we're partners with Comcast on that partnership. And basically, what we have done is we've created a company that gives free tickets to nurses, healthcare workers, education folks, professionals, teachers, and anybody pretty much working in nonprofit or doing good. And the reason why is because there's a two-pronged problem. There's a problem on the event side, and there's a huge amount of people that are running events. And this could be from, the MLS all the way down to small mom and pop events. And there's a large inventory of tickets that go unsold, and it's millions of dollars of revenue. And so we said, hey, if mostly everybody, unless you're Taylor Swift, is having problems booking all your tickets, it's missed revenue. And on average, people spend like about $60 every time they go to an event on food and other things. So they're still making money when people show up. And it's good because now you're giving back, you're creating impact, but you're also at the same time filling your venue too, which looks good too. And you're still making revenue on these people that are walking through the door. So it's kind of a win-win on both sides, where on the other side, you have people like nurses and teachers that sometimes can't afford to go to some of these events. Like we have tickets for the Grand Prix, for example, coming up in Nashville. That's a perfect example of sometimes those tickets, it's hard to get, or they're expensive. So we have a handful of those that we're giving away, right? So that's an impact project I'm working on that I'm very excited about.
And it seems like that could be so much fun, right? Dealing with like the concerts and the NASCAR, plus you're giving back, helping out, lends itself to some good like PR opportunities perhaps, but also makes you feel good. And so how do you come across like ideas such as this, where you're like, you're finding what you're passionate about, and it was kind of closing the gap? Are you the one that come up with the idea? Does someone come to you with the idea? Is it a mix? Like, what's the origination like?
It's kind of a little bit of both, but I have a lot of people that bring opportunities to me. And part of that is, and I've always said this to all of the students that I've ever coached and the entrepreneurs, always put yourself in rooms where you're the dumbest in the room. Everybody in the room should be smarter than you. Once you start putting yourself in those rooms and networking and building relationships, people will see you for what you are and want to or not want to include you in their projects. And whether that's hiring you, bringing you on as a partner, referring you, whatever it is. So I've always done the best of my ability to put myself in rooms with people that I've built solid relationships with that help me grow my professional life and my businesses. And it's the most important thing you could do as an entrepreneur. You can't just sit back and expect that leads are going to come to you. You have to go out and you have to build the relationships to get them.
And it's very logical when you put it that way. Once you get to that end result of saying, well, who is your circle? Who is your team? Who can you be around where you're the dumbest person in the room? And then you have these conversations, and then they decide if you can be on that kind of train with them. And I can see how it's maybe like counterintuitive at first, right? That our natural instincts are to be shy and to not take these risks and to avoid the cringe. But people like know that you need to do that, right? That you need to have this like healthy new flow of people that you were talking to and doing the networking. And so are you like a natural networker, or are you the kind of person that kind of had to push yourself and get yourself out there?
I hate networking. It's actually really funny because I run a very exclusive 3 times a year. It's called the Wealth Mastery Summit, where we have 45 to 55, 7, 8, 9, 10 figure folks. I mean, you're talking, we've had the founder of Equinox, we've had the founder of Priceline, we've had really big names, the president of Telemundo. I mean, huge names come to these events multiple times, by the way, not just once, but 2 or 3 times. These people keep coming back. And it's basically a 2-day event where we stuff really, really smart, successful people in a room together. And it's funny because I started those events because I was coaching, and I was the headliner. I was the person teaching in the front of the room. And as it's grown and the room's gotten bigger and bigger, and now half the room is wealthier than me and has higher net worth than me, I've kind of stepped back from that role. But it's funny because I run these events, and I did it because I realized that I needed to put myself in these rooms, and I needed to put people that I needed in that room in the same room together. So I have clients in there. I have prospective clients in there. I have people I do business with in there. And now it creates that environment for me. But the funny thing is I always get up and say, hey, this is great. You're all here. I hate networking. I hate doing this, but I'm here because it's important. So it's funny that I run these events because I hate speaking. I hate being in front of a room, and I don't like networking, but I know it's important, so I do it.
You're showing some vulnerability there, right? Some humanity, and saying, well, if I didn't have this aspect of my business, if I didn't have the networking or the speaking, wouldn't have a business. So even though it is a little bit uncomfortable, it's a thing that I need to be doing. And it's a good habit to have. And so, whenever there's these kinds of like amazing networking events like you described, it seems like there's always a lot of momentum that's like tricky to keep going, right? And we've all seen like, well, there's some like event that like they do every year, and we've seen like rise and falls sometimes when we're like, hey, why is that event all virtual now? Or why didn't they do an event like that year? And so can you speak to that somewhat of like the need of like having the event momentum, and to like get those seats filled or keep the buzz alive or keep people showing up, even though it seems like it's like a lot of work ahead of time?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much sell out our next event from our event. And I do it in 2 ways because I've built like a pool now of people that come to our events, and I keep a conversation. We have a WhatsApp group. Everyone's engaging. Now at this point, everyone's friends, and, they're like, oh, are you going? Are you going? And so at the end of the event, I say, hey, I'll give you 50% off right now, the next event, for those of you sitting in the room for the next event. And then I send an email to everyone that's not at that event that have been to previous events and say, hey, I'll give you 25% off right now to book for the next event. And between those two, for the most part, I get almost 75% of my next event filled. because people see the value. I mean, when you're sitting in a room, and the difference what we've done and everyone else is I figured out a formula that's different than every other event that's out there right now. So for example, you get 2 days with these people. You don't just see a billionaire sitting in front of the room. You actually get to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them and sit down with them and exchange phone numbers with them. And a lot of these people have actually had Zooms with some of these attendees and have helped them and invested in their companies. And I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we have private equity there, people that are trying to give money and funding. And so what I try to do is every single event, I put a survey out. What do you need? And then when people write back in the survey, what do they need? What are they looking for? What are they trying to get out of this event? Then what I do is I help try to go find those people to either speak or be in the room to provide value. The more value you give to these people and you're strategic about it, they're going to want to come back. But I also make sure every event is different. We change it up. Like ours is in mansions. So we do them in beautiful mansions a lot of time. And, we did one at the COO of ADT's house, for example. Like how cool is that? It's a 15,000 square foot, like on the water, beautiful house. So every event is different and the speakers are different. The theme is different. And we provide value and people just want to come back.
Very cool. And I hope that the security system was super decked out. Like if he's the
It
CEO,
was. It was
it better be
actually
like,
It was actually hard to manage. I had to figure out it's like all connected with the music and the lights and like, they had shades that go down and it was a pretty intense tech package.
well, fun. At least it's on brand. Like I can imagine like a Indiana Jones or something. Like say there's like something precious on a shelf. If you remove it, then like all the shades go down and the door's locked and the lasers come up. Right? Just I mean that sounds like a lot of fun. And but that kind of gives us a feeling of the variety of like it's not just the same old like hotel conference room where like so for some reason the walls are like yellow and light brown, right? It's like there's some it's an adventure, it's an experience. And so you gather these people around, and as you said, sometimes they make connections, they become investors, and then many times with the events there's like the magic and the golden nuggets, and sometimes you hear like one thing over the course of those days, and you say, hey, that one thing was worth it. It was worth the plane ride and the plane being delayed and all that sort of stuff. And so over the years, is there anything that you picked up, like just like one little sentence or one little tip that just like changed everything for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny. I've had quite a few of them, but one of the best tips that I heard at an event, it was, if you have the money, why have one advisor when you can have two, three, or four? And I said financial advisor. And I said, well, that's interesting. And so like the conversation kept going. So I'm like, why? I'm thinking in my head, why would you want multiple? Wouldn't you want one person to oversee everything? And the thought process is that, a good financial advisor, for the most part, you're looking at $500,000 worth of revenue that or money that you want to give them. Anything under that, you could find people, but the good advisors, the high level advisors, they're looking for the 500,000 or millions, right? So once you get to that point and you build your company, and remember, if you're a startup, you're a new CEO, you can put up to $65,000 a year in a SEP IRA and start putting that money away. It's a write-off for you as well. And so once you start building your wealth and building all of that, and you hire somebody, start with one, but then once you start building, hire a second one, because now you have two different people that are going to be coming to you with two different strategies and two different insights. And what's interesting is I've had, three advisors at the same time in the past, where all three had different strategies. One would get me 12%, one would get 19, and one would get 28% consistently. And they all had three different strategies and ways to go about it. So it allows you to leverage expertise and multiply that expertise by multiple people. And I've kind of pinned them against each other in a way too, to see who gets the best value. Because at the end of the day, you can say, okay, the market did 12%, I did 17%, I did well. Well, what if you can do 28? Well, you won't know if you only have one advisor, right? So it's been an interesting way we've built wealth, and how we've been able to grow is by leveraging that tactic. We now have a financial advisor that's consistently getting us over 22%. He's phenomenal. But now also he's getting us into Blackstone and private equity and all these other opportunities and deals that we wouldn't be able to do if we if we didn't find him through this mechanism, right? So
I love that. And that can be a lot of fun to pursue different choices and to build your team. And you hear about this a lot, how like sometimes people are fixated on just like, well, what do I need to do? What are my actions? What are the steps? But then when it seems like the more enlightened thinkers are like saying, well, who do you have in your corner and who can you just put on that project and who can you delegate? And it seems to be just like thinking in different ways. Like I love there's some Napoleon Hill quote that's something like, if you want to fail in money and business, listen to your neighbors and your friends and your family. But then if you want to do better, then like, find better people, find people that you normally organically in life wouldn't just know through high school and college. Like go to events such as yours where it is awkward at first and you meet people, but they're people that they've accomplished amazing things and they have really cool ideas. And so as far as like what you've done to build up to this, like we've mentioned before that you built these companies and you've exited them. Is there any particular company that like you had a lot of fun building and selling, or just anything in your kind of transformational journey that's worth talking about?
oh, I've had quite a few different things. I mean, I'm working on a lot of really fun projects now, but I mean, I would say my first agency that I sold in 2014, which it was purchased by the largest traditional private advertising agency. Now they're one of the top advertising agencies in the US, doing over nine figures of advertising. That was probably my most fun just because of the way that it unfolded and how I started as an app developer. And this is the three things I learned when I started growing my first business at 17 was you need three things. You need skills, you need to work hard, and you need the right people. And I kind of fell into all three of those. I was a hard worker. I was pretty smart. I was a developer. I self-taught myself how to do app development while I was getting a computer science degree. But to me, the most important part of my success was actually meeting and running into the right people who helped me get to where I was. And I wasn't afraid to ask for help. I wasn't afraid to ask, hey, what else can we work on? And I ended up getting three very, very high powered people, an executive at Morgan Stanley, the CEO of one of the leading Wi-Fi installation companies in the world, and a CIO at a very, very big university. All of them invested in me and said, hey, while we're working on these other projects, so I was working for the Morgan Stanleys of the world, let's do this side project together and we'll go 50-50. And that's how I got into entrepreneurship, because I wasn't afraid to say, hey, what else can I help you with? I love working with you. And they said, oh, actually, I have this idea. And that's what got me into entrepreneurship, and also taking that leap of faith. Sometimes people wouldn't have done that and gone and done that, but those ended up being three of my six exits. And I learned a lot from those projects. And that's really what built me to who I am today. We're taking those leaps of faith and building those. And it was hard. I had to figure it out. But I said, you know what? Failure is not an option. If I fail, it's not a failure. It's a learning lesson. I'm going to springboard off that.
I love that. And I like your entrepreneurial mindset here, this idea of what problems can I solve and who can I help, and having these conversations of saying like, well, hey, like, where are you stuck? Can you put me on this? Can I solve this for you? And I like your framework there. You're saying it's important to have the skills to do the work and to have the people to help you out. And sometimes I psych myself out thinking about the ratio of the networking, joint venturing versus the kind of the doing the work part of it, right? When there's sometimes the client work or focusing on revenue or putting out the fires versus the more higher level stuff like what we're doing now, right? We're networking, we're on a podcast, you're doing the publicity. And so do you ever think about that? Do you ever think of to yourself of like, what's the pie chart look like? Or how much networking should I be doing? Or is there too much or not enough?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is uh, I had a 5-year non-compete when I sold my last agency, so I couldn't really do anything. And so when I started to get back into consulting, and after taking kind of a 5-year hiatus, and I kind of forgot how to do it. Like it's like riding a bike, but I was kind of like, I don't remember how to be an entrepreneur in a way, because you know, you don't always ever lose it, but at the same time, like I had to kind of remember how to ride the bike again. And you know, in doing this, what I realized was that one, times changed, right? So when you did it the first time versus the second time, it was very different. But two, I realized that with the time change with social and the way things have gone nowadays, that I would be so busy with business that I would forget to network. And this is one of the biggest changes that happened with the pandemic versus, in 2010 or 2011 or 12, when there wasn't that many marketing agencies and SEO was a big thing and whatnot. It was so much easier to get clients then. But I've actually stopped networking because I'm so busy, and then my leads are dry, and then I lose a client or two, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, like now I have no leads. So what I've learned again is that you can't stop. You have to always be networking. You always have to be out there. You always have to be, on social. Unfortunately, it's the world, and I hate social. I hate being out there. I don't like being center of attention, but I know it's important, and so networking, podcast, social, I write for Forbes and Entrepreneur, and you do all these things to keep your name out there so that your lead pool doesn't dry up, because when you need the leads and you don't have them, that's when you fail.
That's a great insight. Fish before you're hungry and keep in mind the lag time. And you've described adulting, right? That there's definitely, you can't 100% of the time only do things that are fun, only do things that you want to do. Sometimes you have to do the dishes, take out the garbage, take the little kid to school. And just like you have to be on social and you have to do networking, but there are benefits on the other side of that, which is having this Rolodex and just having this forward momentum and having an easier time getting your leads, making your sales, finding the buyer for your exits, filling the events, etc. It's all important stuff. Even though in the moment, do I really have to get to this meeting? Well, yes, you do. It's important. And so, as far as somebody finding out about these amazing events you've described and about your company, what you have going on, what are some next steps here? What's the website? Where should someone go?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to learn more about me, you can go to alexadagostino.com. You can follow me on social. I post a lot about startups and entrepreneurship and marketing and digital advertising. Performance marketing is my thing in advertising, so I post a lot about that. So you can go follow me there. I'm on basically everything from TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the goodies. If you need marketing help, I mean, for the most part, we're looking for companies that are about 1 million and up in revenue, or funding, especially if you're in the sports and the tech or medical fields, those fields. I'm part of an amazing private equity venture. We just did $100 million raise in 6 months. So if you're in that kind of more sports techie world and looking for funding, you could reach out. And you could check out my agency at thinkfuelmedia.com, think with a Y.
Very cool. So if that sounds like you and your business, $1 million plus in revenue, sports tech space, then find Alexa D'Agostino on Facebook, and their website is thinkfuelmedia.com. That's think with a Y. And these very incredible events that you described, is there a website for that? Or like you mentioned these like huge numbers, huge experiences. Is there like a gatekeeping aspect? Is there like a certain criteria you met? Does someone know if they're a good fit for attending these events?
Yeah, it's wealthmastery.events. I will tell you, it is very exclusive. I interview everybody. I probably interview 400 to 500 people to get a room of 45 to 50. But yeah, wealthmastery.events. You could check it out and you can learn more there.
Very nice. Wealthmastery.events. And before I let you go, Alexa, it's time to stump you a little bit, put you on the spot. I like to ask my guests at the very end here to just give us a sound bite, right? Because as you said, social media is important. And with the reels and the TikToks, the kids these days, they love the little clips. And what's great for a clip is a fun, inspiring, motivational, helpful quote or lesson that you've learned that has helped you that you can pass on to us. So what comes to mind as far as a fun quote or lesson?
Yeah, I would say success isn't just about talent, it's about hard work. It's about working smart, being bold, and having the guts to go after what everyone else says is impossible.
Very nice. Multiple pillars. And so as we consider that, find Alexa D'Agostino on Facebook and thinkfuelmedia.com. That's THYNKFUEL media.com. Go there now. You'd be glad you did. You've given us so much to think about here, Dr. Alexa, as far as what we've done and what we're doing and what's worked well for you. I really appreciate it. Just the outside the box, more advanced thinking, because same thinking, same actions get the same results. So listen to someone like you will get even bigger and better results. So thank you for stopping by and making the time.
Thanks for having me.